and welcome to another video tutorial. My name is Britta Swiderski and today we're going to be playing with distress paint. Now I just recently got these, so I haven't even had that much time to play around with them, but I did come up with something pretty cool, so I wanted to share it with you and then kind of show you as I build layers how we can create a really dimensional and in-depth background using the properties of distress paint. So come along with me with this adventure and we'll have some fun playing with some new products. So these are distress paints by Ranger. They come in 24 colors. I currently have 12 of them, and I actually wrote a blog post on which ones I would pick, and I did pick those 12 to start out with. I plan on getting all of the colors eventually, but I'm on a budget, so this is how I managed to control myself. If you wanted to stick with 6 to start out with or something, maybe even 3, just pick ones that blend together. And then you'll always have things to do. So the blues would be a really good way to start out with, or the greens, or pinks and purples. I'm starting with the yellows and oranges today. So I have picket fence, mustard seed, wild honey, and spiced marmalade. I'm going to start out by putting these directly onto my craft sheet. They're a fluid, a paint that reacts with water just like all distress mediums do. But they're not blendable once they dry. So they're blendable while they're wet, but they maintain their color integrity when they're dry, which is going to be something really fun for layering. So I'm just going through and squeezing a little bit to get some of the product going in here, but not very hard, and making lines of product. So I'm just putting them in kind of rainbow order from lightest to darkest. So not rainbow order at all, actually. And if you wanted to incorporate some pink or something else, that'd be cool too. But I'm just going to stick with these 4 colors for now so you can really see this technique. So then I'm going to, after I have these bars of color, just spritz them with water just a few times just to get them nice and fluid and reacting. And then I'm going to take some watercolor paper I've cut down to the size of a card front, and I'm just going to press it in to my paints, kind of smush it around, going from side to side, just really making those colors blend without going up and down, because that would make them, you know, blend together in the way we don't want. So now we have this really cool white to orange, and so you could either let this dry just like this, or you can go back in. Really get that color working around. You could do whatever you want, really. So I have even more blending now. And now I'm just going to use my finger to kind of really get this looking how I want it. So I can use the darker color, pick up some of that, then blend into the medium orange. Okay, so I've just blended this out with my finger. I used a different finger for each color just so that they don't get super contaminated, but you can do it however you want. And then I use a wet wipe to kind of clean off my fingers. The paint comes off really, really easily. You can see the purple from when I just cleaned up my craft mat before I started this project. So now I have a background that I really, really like. You can see this wonderful gradient from white to orange. And you can use the rest of this paint on another project to wipe it through, or you can just wipe it up with a wet wipe. So now I'm just going to set this aside to let it dry, or you can heat it with a heat gun. Since we used quite a bit of water on this, it should dry pretty fast. I found if you use more paint, it dries a little bit slower, which is cool because then you have a longer work time. But in that case, you can just heat it with a heat tool and it should dry pretty quickly because it is a more fluid paint. You can still heat it with a heat gun. I'm actually just going to use a little bit of paper towel and kind of let this help this along to dry. And you can see it picks up a little bit of the color, but it doesn't really take off that much color unless it's really wet. So I'm going to use this spun sugar distress paint to actually put dots on here. And you can see I kind of already have it primed by getting it nice and juicy. Just going to start in the middle and just make dots using the paint dauber. And so I'm just going to do an all over pattern, kind of remembering to get the paint going so that my dots don't get too dry, but then again, if you have too little paint, you can always go back over that same dot and it will be fine. So I'm just going to use this. You could use any color over the top of this. I thought about using one of the oranges, but I think this pink brings in another color, which just adds a lot more dimension to the piece. Another cool thing is that since these are based in acrylic paint, you have that workability to remove them if you make a mistake. So I put a dot right here in the corner, but just used my paper towel to pick up the wet paint, and you can't even see it. And so now I can go back and just correct that little mistake. So while my background continues to dry, I'm going to use this set from Lawn Fawn called +1. And it's a baby themed stamp set, and I'm actually making this for a baby card, and it's going to be a baby girl. My boyfriend's cousin is about to have a baby, and I'm really excited because I don't get to make baby cards that often. And I'm going to use +1. I'm just going to use the sentiment, let's celebrate, and I thought it'd be really cute with the baby rattles next to it on either side. So I'm just going to stamp this little rattle on either side. And then I can cut little banners on the edge if I want to. Not quite sure if I'm going to yet or not. We will see. I'm actually going to take a little bit of this pink paint and I'm going to dab it out onto my work surface. If you wanted a lot of it, you could obviously take the cap off and just pour it out. But I don't need that much. And I'm going to use it with my smallest paintbrush from Claudine Helmuth to paint in the little top and bottom of the rattle. And you can always go over this with a pen later if you're like me and kind of messy, or I guess I could even use a smaller brush for this, but this should work just fine. And then I'm also going to do the little handle part at the bottom here. So this totally shows that you can use it just like regular paint. You can even add water to it to dilute it a little bit if you want more of a watercolor look. But this works just fine, and then this will dry fairly quickly because I did put barely any paint on here. And then we should be ready to start putting our card together. So now that our background's dry, and I just kind of hit it with a heat gun to finish it drying, and I also used my Sharpie pen, which this is my favorite pen for outlining things. You can see it in the supply list in the description below this video. But I used this to outline over the paint so that it looked like I got perfectly within the lines, which, I mean, I didn't go crazy outside the lines, but it's hard to make things perfect on the first time every time. And so now I can really start assembling my card. And actually, I just remembered I do want to put one more layer of paint on my background. But first, before I do that, I'm going to add my foam adhesive to the back, so that once I get my paint on, I can just stick it onto my card and let it dry on my card. Because this one, I'll just be going around the edges. So I'm just going to go in with my Wild Honey, which is my lighter orange color, and really go around the edges. And you can go as much into the edge as you want on this. I'm going to make it pretty obvious that I went around the edges with paint by drawing almost like just over a 1/16 of an inch border around it with paint. This is really fun, but you could use this as just a little tiny border as well. And then I can go ahead and carefully stick it to my card so that it can dry right on the card. And then I'm also going to cut a little bit of a banner end into my sentiment strip, not too deep, because I don't want it to be super pronounced, but just a little bit of flair for the edges. And then I'm going to go around the edges of this as well with the paint. But this one I'm going to make a little bit less pronounced. It's just going to really tie it together with the card. And having the wider V on this allows me to get into that corner, where on a normal card you'd have to take a little paintbrush to get into that crevice. And then I can go ahead and stick this on my card. Going to put it about 2/3 of the way down, just slightly below middle. And then since my edges are pretty much already dry, I can just go in with a little paper towel and kind of dab them to make sure I'm not going to smear any paint. But they're pretty much dry, and I can go ahead and wrap around some twine. So this is Lawn Trimmings twine from Lawn Fawn in their lemonade color. Or maybe it's just lemon. I think it's just lemon. But it's this wonderful little baker's twine. It'll go perfectly with the colors on this card, since we combined the mustard seed and the white, it created this really nice gradient that matches this twine. So I'm just going to cut a kind of longer piece, and I really love that this twine actually rolls in the packaging, so you can keep it on this roll if you want. You can keep it in the packaging if you want, and I actually just use a little clip to clip mine and hang it up in my craft room, and that's easy for me to see. So this is from their new line, so you can go get this over at Simon Says Stamp now, which is really exciting, along with a lot of their other new products. And I'm just going to tie a cute little bow down in the front here under the Let's Celebrate. Actually, I'm going to use 2 widths of twine, so you can just make that doubled up, and then it should be enough to make a bow with. So now I just tied my bow. I moved it over to the side because it didn't look quite right in the middle. So I'm actually going to add some pearls, one on top of my bow. Also going to squirt a little bit of matte multi-medium behind it, or glossy accents, just to keep the bow in place when it goes through the mail. And then I'm going to do a big pearl, and these pearls are from Hero Arts. You could totally color them in with Copics if you wanted to, but I thought the white would go pretty nicely with the card, just how it is right now. And then these are the medium-sized pearls, and just sticking one of those on either end of this. And then I'm also going to use 2 small pearls for the little end of the rattle. So this brings the pearls kind of full circle here, and then you have 3 touches of pearls, and it really just adds a nice little balance. So with the pearls added on, I think that completes the card for today. I really like how this turned out, really sweet and simple, and we got to use the fabulous distress paints. If you like warm colors, I definitely recommend picking up these colors. They're really fantastic together. And of course, you could even do another gradient over the background. You could add as many layers of paint as you possibly wanted to, since paint works that way, and I love that. It's just a whole new area to explore. So thank you so much for watching this week, and if you have any comments, questions, please ask them in the comment section below here on YouTube or on my blog, and I will respond back to them and maybe even suggest future videos that you want to see, and maybe I'll make them. So thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you again next time on another video tutorial.